Agencies Drinking Beers brought to you by Proposify, software that helps you deliver beautiful proposals in the cloud and close more deals.
On today's show, we're talking to Chris Kinnard, who leads up business development at Leap Financial, and he's going to walk through outbound sales for SaaS companies and how to generate leads with a small sales team. Just had a great interview with Chris Kinnard from Leap Financial, and I feel like this is the SaaS episode. This is the episode where we don't really talk about agency stuff too much. We talk about SaaS businesses, which is fine.
But there are a lot of agencies wanting to get into SaaS.
That is true. And the reason I say that is because the interview is a lot about sales and outbound for SaaS companies, but I also think agencies would get value from it. But even our question from a listener is about SaaS. I know you're totally stoked. We don't get enough questions from listeners.
Love it.
If you have a question you want us to answer, please email kevin@proposify.biz.
Bring it on.
Yes. You can email me too. So anyway, the question we had is from Joe, who runs a SaaS company. And he said that he knows, because he knows a little bit about us, that we get most of our customers from word of mouth, direct traffic, people finding the blog or whatnot. And we do a little bit of PPC and AdWords and Facebook ads and that kind of thing. So he said he was really curious to know, because they have they're mostly doing outbound right now, and he wanted to know what our funnel looked like before we kind of got the organic stuff going. He said that when building your inbound funnel and digital presence, did we have a short-term lead stream that we were getting our leads from, and when did the inflection point to inbound occur? He's trying to build for long term. He knows he needs to go inbound, but right now they're doing mostly outbound. So kind of an interesting question, because the interview is all based around outbound for SaaS, and so I think we could speak more to the inbound side. For the record, we don't use HubSpot, the inbound tool, and we don't. I think we do a lot of inbound, but we don't necessarily do it, the full HubSpot way.
Let's start very high level.
Okay.
And then you can drill down.
Sure.
The fact that we decided to really become the experts in proposal writing for one vertical, really...
Smile.
Exactly. Was the key to our success at the beginning when it came to filling the funnel with the proper leads and understanding our clients and how they think. Agencies, basically.
Yeah.
So I think when you start there with a specific target audience, it really helps. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Knowing your niche, knowing your market, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, that's true. And I mean, I think they know that as well. They have a very specific tool for a very specific type of customer. I think that the key for us, though, and I think what everybody should do, is if you have an idea for a SaaS product and you're launching an MVP, or however many months that takes to launch, start marketing from day one. Set up that landing page, start driving a bit of traffic, get your email list going, start acquiring email addresses for people that would be interested in your product. That's step one. Because I think we did that. We had really done it. We started a blog. It wasn't a very good blog, but we started a blog, and we started marketing from day one before the product was even there.
I remember that landing page, actually.
Yeah.
Just grabbing leads from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember even at Headspace, Amy was writing a lot of the blog articles about proposals and stuff. So that helped to just sort of get the fire going a little bit, get the little spark going, and then you can build it up from there. So really, the thing is, I guess to answer his question, we didn't do a lot of outbound at any point in the company's history. We had always sort of just used SEO, used a little bit of AdWords, started trying to get traffic organically, and we just kept pouring gas on it and just iterate the product, make the product better. You get more customers, people refer it, and it sort of goes from there. So I'm afraid there's not like a silver bullet there. Now, one thing that we did do, which I would recommend, is every now and then we would have a little bit of money and we would decide to splurge on like a big ad spend. Big, I say, like couple grand.
Yeah.
There's things like Fusion Ads. If people haven't checked out fusionads.net, this is great if you're really if you're building a product for designers or developers. Fusion Ads really good for that. The Deck is a lot more expensive. These are targeted ad networks, and they do banner ads, and they do them on very popular websites and blogs.
What was that one that we did that really brought a lot of traffic at the beginning?
It was either the Deck or Fusion Ads.
No, it was...
Buy-sell ads?
No, I can't remember. Maybe it was one of the platforms they used. I can't remember the channel, the advertising channel.
Yeah, I liken one of those ad spends to basically like you've already got a small fire and you just want to throw a little bit of Kentucky bourbon on that fire, just like just get a little, you know what I mean?
That's a waste of Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah, well, maybe
lighter fluid.
Okay, lighter fluid, fine. The thought of wasting bourbon
Kentucky
would just
bourbon,
hurt you.
Yeah. It does.
Anyway, I'd recommend that. It's really good after a release. So let's say you just launch a big feature that you think is going to get some traction, and it's kind of nice to just throw like a couple grand at like an ad spend. It gives you a big boost in traffic, gets you a couple, 50, a couple hundred, whatever signups to just start testing the new features and see if it's there. And this is all before you're kind of at product market fit and growing quickly. There's a post that I want people to check out. It's an old post. It's an oldie but a goodie. Ooh. It's from 2009, way back in 2009. The company Campaign Monitor, who makes great email software, published a blog post on promoting their company with banner ads. And they walked through using Fusion Ads, the Deck, and a couple other ad networks, different landing pages, and then they tested the results to see which brought the greatest conversion, and they laid it all out in a lot of detail. That's been one of my guiding principle posts ever since I read it, and it's still worth going back to, even though things have changed and, things haven't really changed that much. This stuff still works, so hopefully that helps. Check it out. We're now about to go into an interview with Chris Kinnard.
Chris Kinnard!
Super excited to have Chris Kinnard on the show today. Chris he heads up business development at Leap Financial, and they're a company based out of San Francisco who do finance automation for subscription businesses. Really happy to have you on the show, Chris.
Thanks. Really happy to be here.
Cool. So maybe, we have a prior history. You guys had, it was actually you who had reached out. I was, most probably listeners are familiar with Kissmetrics. They've got a great blog on marketing, and they do, analytics mostly for SaaS and e-commerce businesses. And I had signed up. I was a longtime fan of the blog and the content, and Neil Patel and Heaton Shaw, the guys who kind of co-founders at the startup. And you were basically like my account manager at Kissmetrics, and when we had gotten Proposify off the ground, that was the first analytics program we looked at, and you helped onboard us, and you sold us on it. It was great.
Yeah, you were one of my early victims over there at Kissmetrics. I can't remember if I prospected you or if you guys came inbound, but
we were an inbound lead.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you guys are a perfect fit for the type of solution that we're providing, and getting that first ever acquisition and refer source, all those details that analytics is so good at.
Yeah. I would imagine that you've worked with, Kissmetrics. You've done a ton of stuff before that. I think I saw on your profile like 10 years in business development and sales, mostly at SaaS companies and startups. Mm-hmm. So it's a really different kind of business than probably a lot of our listeners are used to. I think a lot of them want to have SaaS products, or they're working towards building SaaS products, but most of them are at agencies and kind of getting their clients organically through referrals and word of mouth. So I think it'd be really cool to hear your side of things in terms of how you got into this business, and sort of what you've learned along the way in terms of like really setting up systems for sales and how to kind of automate a lot of the like lead generation and closing and basically how do you put it all together. So I'd love to hear that from you. I know that's kind of a big question. So why don't we kind of start with, Kissmetrics, which is probably what most people are familiar with. Like, what did you do there, and what was that experience like?
Yeah. So I was, I'd worked with the former VP of Sales, Ben Sardella. He's now a co-founder over at Datanize. I'd worked with him and a couple other colleagues previously at a company called Trustee, and so I was doing a lot of traveling around at another company, and really was just trying to get off the road so much. Was trying to kind of get more into a smaller environment where I could help kind of build things from the ground up. And so when he approached me about this opportunity at Kissmetrics, I really jumped because I'd never sold analytics before. Analytics was kind of always this kind of scary thing. I mean, I went to a state school, so the technical details were a little bit imposing, and I wasn't sure that it would be a good fit for my sales background. But the more I jumped into it, the more I realized like how important it is for companies to really just know as much as possible about the people that visit their websites. And it's a great product. It's definitely changed a lot since. I mean, the whole environment and the ecosystem has changed in the last 6 years. But for any company that's looking to learn which marketing channels are working great, and how people originally find them versus like where they came from when they signed up today versus how they found them on their first click. It's those types of systems can really be helpful.
I think they're absolutely, they're absolutely essential when you run a SaaS business, because Google Analytics just isn't enough. Like, you need, especially from a product management standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, knowing how the most active users get into your platform and how they, how you acquire them, what's sort of the lifetime value, and then what do they actually do when they're in your product. Like, what's the time between events? I know Kissmetrics was always really good at that stuff. It was like, you just want to come up with these two events, like signing up and then entering billing details, or using a particular feature. Like, what's the correlation? What sort of indicates that more people are going to use this feature? Like, knowing all that stuff is impossible with Google Analytics, and Kissmetrics was very good at that.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've been practicing the elevator pitch for Kissmetrics, so you'll have to forgive me if I say a couple things incorrectly. But I mean, whether you guys are running banner ads or whether people are doing pay per click or any type of campaign, people don't necessarily sign up on that first visit. They either have to check some review sites, or they have to ask counterparts or colleagues or just people who have used the system themselves, and they might come back on the 5th or 6th visit and sign up. So if you don't know like how that person originally found you, you don't really know what marketing channels are actually working for you. It's the difference between first ever attribution and last ever attribution. So it's that's something that Kissmetrics does particularly well. I'm sure other systems out there do the same thing, or are doing that as well nowadays.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Kissmetrics, I think, was one of the ones probably earlier to market. I think they were, in a way, a lot of the pioneers of like kind of SaaS analytics tools. Other competitors have come along. We use, I think, a competitor now, Heap Analytics. But one thing that Kissmetrics has always done incredibly well, and I think most listeners would probably be familiar with, if not Heaton Shaw, Neil Patel, who runs QuickSprout and big blogger, marketer, talks a lot about all that stuff. I think they were pretty good at getting the whole inbound thing working with Kissmetrics, because a lot of people just knew the blog. They knew that they produced great content, and using that as a lead gen tool. So like, you're in this role at Kissmetrics. Did you find that, like, maybe compared to past jobs, did you find it easier being in an environment where basically leads were coming in because they like signed up to like download a free guide or a free ebook or something from the blog, and you could kind of very easily go, okay, cool, we know a lot about this particular lead, they would be a good fit, so I'm going to like call them or email them and try to get a demo set up?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's one of the great things about working for an analytics company is that we have all that data, so we know how they found us. It's crazy how much you're being followed around the web, and some people might find it a little bit creepy if they knew all the details, but there's always cookies that are kind of following you around, and so that's why when you're if you go to Amazon and you look up, just last night I'm going on a river trip, so I was looking up inflatable rafts. And then this morning, I'm, kind of clicking around, getting my daily political, news junk, and I see an ad follow me pop up. So I'm like, that's no coincidence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to answer your question, we had that was one of the best parts about Kissmetrics is our blog and our marketing presence. We had a very prolific team there. They were really considered thought leaders. Neil Patel and Heaton Shah, they're great, and they are seen as experts in the space. So they were really just kind of self-made, just very, very, in the forefront of marketing technology and marketing thought. So they've always been great about that, and then we got the benefit as salespeople from all the buzz that they generated. And so, we always had a lot of inbound leads, whether they were webinars, whether they were newsletters, whether they're just people that are interested in, how we differ from Google Analytics. But that was never a problem at Kissmetrics with leads.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very different way to sell SaaS. Like, so with our company, Proposify, at least when we started, we had kind of said we wanted to build it for like freelancers and independents and, charge very little. I think $15 a month was our initial plan. We've gone up since then, and we're finding that more and more the people that the customers that end up being the best in terms of lifetime value and they don't churn they're the bigger companies and they pay a lot more. So it's almost like the more you charge in a sense, the more you can retain customers, which is a little counterproductive. Counterintuitive. But I mean, Kissmetrics and pretty much all those analytics tools they're not cheap tools. You can't just sign up for $10 a month like Buffer, right? So to a certain degree, outbound sales or at least high touch sales is incredibly important. And, you did that with us. Like, I had signed up as a lead. I was kind of interested. You got on the phone with me. You walked me through a demo. I was already kind of sold. And then, there was even I think an SLA or a contract that you had sent through. So there's a lot more work in like managing the lead and bringing them down the sales funnel. Right. So what did that look like as a SaaS company that's kind of was sort of more enterprisey, I suppose?
So, I mean, that's the thing. Like when something's $10 or $15 a month, it's very hard to have, be able to, pay a sales team to go after those leads. It's almost not worth it. So, as you move kind of upstream and you're getting, more and more, quote unquote, sophisticated clients that are, really just kind of have the budgets. They're doing a lot more marketing. So as your marketing spend goes up, your spend on analytics should, follow accordingly. So, we were tasked mostly, I would say it was about 60-40 in terms of our time split between following up on inbound leads, obviously the hot to trot ones that came, and signed up, filled out a form on our website were the first ones we would follow up on. And then, webinars and newsletters, in that order. But every business, and I've been a firm believer in this since I started my career, every business needs to be doing outbound, especially today when there are so many competitors out there. If you have a price point that's high enough to justify a sales team, and that sales team is not spending, let's say, 8 hours of their day, or let's be generous, let's say 6 hours so that they have time to breathe and answer emails. If they're not spending 6 hours of their day on doing demos, then they should be spending that time doing outbound, whether it's cold calling, cold emailing, whatever they find to work the best for them.
So you think that, even if you've got a really good inbound process and you've got kind of a machine in place where you're like the blog generates tons of traffic, there's really good CTAs and it gets people into a funnel and email automation and all this kind of stuff, do you still think in that scenario that it makes sense for a salesperson to like actually proactively go after leads and cold email them, cold call?
Well, it's funny because every company I've worked at, I mean, I went to school for cognitive neuroscience, believe it or not, and I wanted to be a psychology professor. When I missed the deadline to apply for PhD programs, I ended up finding myself in a entry-level sales role at a software company down in San Diego. And so it was pure, lead gen, given a list of companies to call that fit our, ideal customer profile and, go get them, set up leads and demos for our sales team. And so given that experience and just, kind of learning the types of skills and really temperament that is required for, an outbound salesperson, things that they need for their career, it's just like, why wouldn't you? If there's business out there to be had, why wouldn't you go after it? And
doesn't it depend on the model though? I mean, depending on if it makes sense and if you can afford to have longer sales processes or have people doing outbound.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I mentioned earlier, like, if the price point is high enough and, your sales reps do have the bandwidth to accommodate that, then yes, absolutely. If they are, if the price point is too low, if their bandwidth is, constantly, focused on other things, then no, probably not worth it. But
it's interesting too, Chris, I'm sure you got a lot out of that training. I know I did. I know when I got out of school in the mid 80s at a university, my degree was in fine arts management, but Ronald Reagan was in office and he cut all the National Endowment for the Arts out for his Star Wars program because he was a bit paranoid. We won't go there. And, I fell back on sales too. And I remember that first day of, that first job and that training on how to listen to people and learn how to sell. I mean, like yourself, I had a different degree, but I mean, it's amazing how much you can learn about people and how it really is so advantageous as you move through your career when you get that sales training. Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I most recently, I was with a company called User Testing, and they, not to divulge any secrets, but they were doing very little outbound prospecting, and they had a great marketing team, and so we had a lot of inbound, but it just seemed like there wasn't a lot of there wasn't an impetus, there wasn't a push from management to really be doing outbound, at least when I started. I believe that's changed since, but it's like if you're not constantly doing demos or following up with clients or managing your pipeline, it's like, what are you doing? I mean, you got to give, a couple minutes for, checking, getting your, political news or what have you. But, the other time should be spent, trying to proactively go after new business. That's at least my theory.
So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about your current role at Leap Financial, and maybe, tell the listeners a little bit about what Leap does and kind of what your role in the company is.
Sure. So I head up business development for Leap Financial. We are a platform that helps growing businesses manage revenue recognition once they've hit a certain number of clients. So like for small businesses that aren't like invoicing a ton of people, and so let's say by a ton I mean less than 50. So if you're doing less than 50 transactions per month, doing revenue recognition is relatively easy. It's manageable. You're not, you can handle it inside an Excel spreadsheet. And then, as revenue, comes in, let's say on an annual contract, you can, put in, let's say it's $250 a month. You can add that stuff in manually. It's not that big of a headache. Where Leap really shines is with companies that are doing, let's say, 10,000 transactions a month. They've got 3 or 4 different types of plans, and their members, their customers are constantly either upgrading or downgrading. God forbid there's a service outage or people are requesting refunds or they're churning. I mean, all of these things are happening at any given point. And so when they're trying to close their books every month, it's just a huge hassle if all this stuff is being done manually. There's really not enough hours in the day to be strategic as a finance person or as a CEO in the smaller companies who end up doing this. or they're just paying their outsourced accounting firm a ton of money to just be spent in Excel. And it's a waste of time and money. And so that's where we come in. So what I've been tasked with doing here is really just kind of building their sales program from the ground up. And, when I got here, we had Salesforce.com, and that's pretty much it. I've been lucky throughout my career that I haven't really had to be the administrator of the Salesforce, so I spent a ton of time getting inside Salesforce, creating reports, customizing rules, doing all these things that, kind of mimicked what I'd experienced at previous companies, and I had no idea what I was doing. So a lot of trial and error, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of satisfaction from setting up a conditional rule inside Salesforce. This is some sales geeking out, if you will.
It's very, very niche kind of geek, right? Very specialized geek.
That's niche geek, yeah.
Leap from just kind of looking, it doesn't look. I mean, I know they've got a blog. Would you say that they've got a lot of inbound stuff coming through the blog or through other channels, or is it AdWords? But I mean, how do you guys basically acquire leads? Is it a lot of outbound outreach? How do you guys sort of get a lead in the door?
So our CEO, Ray Lau, he had competed on Disrupt Battlefield. I think that's what it's called. And I had seen his video, and he reached out to me through AngelList, actually, and it turned out to be a perfect fit because he really liked my experience from Kissmetrics and the amount of outbound lead generation stuff I was doing. And so we hit it off because I'm a firm believer in the outbound approach, and that's really what any small business really needs, especially if you don't have. I'm not even saying a small marketing budget. We have no marketing budget. So we get inbound leads. They are few and far between. They're certainly not enough to sustain us as a business or get us the type of monthly recurring revenue that we need in order to go raise a Series A on advantageous terms. So right now, this is a sales team of 2. We are doing a ton of outbound outreach. You can only be so strategic with who you're outbounding when you're outbounding such a large amount of people. But, there are very specific companies that we are a perfect fit for. And so we do much more specific and personalized outreach to those companies. But, there's a lot of, just campaigns that we've set up inside our sales tools that, we'll just kind of send emails on a regular basis that, target the type of people that we think would be a good fit for us.
So who would be that perfect fit? If you had to kind of put it down to a persona, who's the perfect client that would be a great lead for Leap?
So I would say companies that are between 50 and 100 people, they're really kind of at this inflection point where they're either outsourcing a lot of this accounting work to, a contract CFO or a contract accounting firm, or maybe the CEO is doing it himself. That's one scenario. And so they're either wanting to stop paying their outsourced contractors as much money as they are, wasting as few hours on this type of stuff as possible. Then there's the companies that are a little bit bigger that have already hired somebody in-house. And those are probably our best fit. Those are the people who have a finance team or an accounting team of between 1 and 3 people. They're constantly trying to keep their head above water with all types of things, whether it's AR, whether it's AP, whether it's commission, disbursements. And so the last thing they want to do is spend 10 hours of their month during their close trying to, handle revenue recognition. And then the third best fit for us is a company that's either trying to raise money or they've just raised money and their investors are like, okay, well, how are you spending my money? And how does all this roll up? So what's your MRR? What's your AR? What's your expansion revenue, contraction, churn? All these things are really important for these types of companies to know.
So you know exactly who you're going after as a kind of an outbound specialist, somebody who doesn't have the luxury of just inbound leads filling up their inbox. What are your next steps? Like, how do you go about, do you use LinkedIn, I guess, more from a tactical standpoint? Like, how do you actually go out and find these people to say, okay, this is
Sure.
somebody I want to call or email?
Sure. So this is what I think will be, helpful for your listeners is, there are very specific processes that I do every day. I mean, Salesforce manages everything. That's the CRM that kind of tells me who I need to call when. But when I'm just doing prospecting, I'm looking on LinkedIn. I do a ton. I have the professional version of LinkedIn. It's like $80 a month, and that allows you to very clearly target very specific companies that either have a financial team of X number of people. They are a software company. They're based in the United States. They have received funding, whether it's an A round, a B round. There's lots of, and it doesn't just have to be LinkedIn. Like Crunchbase has this type of information. A company I mentioned earlier, Datanize, they have the ability to kind of guess the emails of people that you find on LinkedIn. So like all of this stuff kind of can tie into your Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using to create a database of people that you would then do outreach to. So I guess the thing I use the most is LinkedIn, and that's really just finding people and identifying what their positions are within that company. Then I'll look at the company's website, make sure they're matching our profile as far as having multiple subscription plans and having at least what I think would be a good fit. And from there, if they are using a certain type of technology, like let's say they're using Recurly or Stripe for their payment processor, I can get that information from Datanize, and then I can pull that information into Salesforce, and then I can use even another tool, not to totally confuse people, but there's another tool called Yesware that can kind of schedule these outbound emails. And so you send one email today, and then you send one email on next Monday, and you can schedule it for a certain time. I mean, there are so many tools out there that can help salespeople just manage their day and manage their outbound prospecting.
Yeah, I don't think you need to worry about mentioning too many tools, because I think a lot of our listeners are tool geeks. Like, people love their SaaS. They love like having all these tools.
There's so many.
Putting together.
There's so many. Yeah, and it's become so helpful. Like when I was starting out in sales, there was really like LinkedIn was just getting off the ground, and so there was a tool out there, a plugin for Chrome called Reportive. And Reportive was basically, if you guess this person's email, it will show their LinkedIn profile pop up, like their picture pop up on the right of your screen. And so it was a Gmail plugin. And so like, let's say I wanted to find, your email, Kyle, and I just put in like Kyle@proposify.com or, proposify.biz. Like, if I guessed it correctly, it would show up. Now, there's really only 4 major permutations for people's emails. And it's like first name @company.com. And that's usually for small businesses. Like, I'm Chris at leapfin.com. And startups usually just use the first name. As the company gets bigger, you'll go to, like, let's say C. Kinnard, so Chris Kinnard, C. Kinnard at leapfin.com, because there's going to be more than one Chris. And then it's going to be Chris dot last name as the company gets bigger. Or maybe they just take out the dot between there. So, like, I swear 80% of companies use one of those 4 permutations. Yeah. And so if you guess it correctly, it'll tell you what their email is. You can put that email in your drip campaign and then, move on to the next person while those emails go out.
Awesome. I've got a question just out of pure curiosity. I love everything you're saying here. And I just, as an expert in the field, what's your opinion on the HubSpot CRM and what they're doing with that? I've been using that lately. It's been fantastic, and it often will pull in all that data for you. Have you used that yet? Have you played around with that?
Well, so I'm familiar. HubSpot has like I forget what the name of their tool is, but yeah, what's the sales? That they have.
It starts with an S.
Hang on. Yeah, I'm on their website. Hang on.
And I don't use their system as a whole. I just use their CRM because it's free primarily and I'm cheap. But other than that, I mean, I just like it. I like a lot of the aspects of it.
It's the thing that tells you if people opened your email and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. So I mean that type of stuff. Yesware handles that for us. I've never used HubSpot. I always knew them more as like a marketing automation tool.
Right.
But I mean, in general, again, there's so many companies out there. They all kind of do the same thing to a degree.
Sure.
Some just do certain things better than others. But when I was starting here at Leap Financial, we have a very small budget, so we had to make do with sometimes we had to make do with, the cheapest tools out there. As we've grown, our CEO sees the results, and so he's invested in some better tools. But like HubSpot has a good free tool. I happen to think Yesware, their paid version is worth it. On top of that, but they don't track email.
Sidekick.
Okay, yeah.
That's the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so tools are great, and they can automate a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, there needs to be strategy, and there needs to be a human behind the sales, obviously, which you know. So you've kind of laid out how to find leads, find the email addresses. What's the next step? Because people get inundated, especially business people, especially people that are, C-level executives and companies get inundated through LinkedIn and all the time with cold emails. How do you actually stand out in their inbox and make them want to reply?
Boy, if I had the answer to that, I would be the most successful sales consultant in the world. There's all kinds of theories, and there's actually data behind some of these theories. I actually read something from Yesware the other day that talked about using numbers in your email subject line. Kind of like how everybody opens those 3 ways to increase your sales pipeline, or 5 list articles. Those are, people love opening those because they already know what they're getting into when they open it. It's not going to be longer than 3 bullet points, and just easily consumable information. A lot of times you're just hitting on which of your value propositions is going to resonate the most with your target audience. And you want to keep it short, you want to keep it concise, you want to try to keep it not salesy, because people hate salespeople. I never take that personally, but nobody wants to be sold to. They want to be guided towards a buying decision. So all this stuff, luckily, can all be tracked inside, whether it's your CRM or, I use Yesware. Yesware can track like my open rates. They can track my response rates, and you don't have to just kind of go by gut instinct. You can go by hard data and find out which one's working the best. And so my advice would just be test as many as you can. Find out what works best for you.
Yeah. And I would think, too, being targeted in your approach, so you're going after people who likely are experiencing the pain that you're trying to solve, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just, you can get a list of emails and just send it to anybody, and, it'll work every now and then, but it's you much better be spending your time on targeting your ideal customer profile.
Do you think that... I guess it's sort of a bit of a change in topic, but do you think that it's helpful at a company like you've been with some larger startups or some SaaS businesses? A lot of them hire like a VP of sales, right, or some high level sales executive to come in and sort of create all these systems and hire a sales team. What's your opinion on that? Is that something that startups should, at a certain stage, should start looking at, get that VP of sales in to build out the sales infrastructure? And is that overkill? Should you start with a couple of people who are just good at sales and have done, have sold SaaS before and kind of know the overall what that outbound funnel looks like? What's your opinion on that?
So I think... So that's a great question, and it's often debated. So it's like, when do I bring in my VP of sales? I think a lot of companies bring in a VP of sales either right before they raise their A round or right after. It's investors like to see that because you've hit this kind of, inflection point. I've used that word again, where, we found something that works, and we need now processes so that we can ensure that we repeat it and that we can scale it. At first, however, like Leap Financial, when I got here, I was like employee number 6. So having a VP of sales would be overkill because, that person is not typically expected to be, doing these outbound campaigns and doing, managing their own pipeline. They're there to manage a team. So like smaller companies, you probably want to start with, I read an article that said your first sales hire should be 2. So hire 2 salespeople. That way they can get a little bit of friendly competition between them. And then, because if one doesn't work out, you'll never know, if he was right because, if he was wrong because he didn't do the right thing or because he was doing not enough things. So you want to have somebody to compare him against and, kind of just test things out. And then, of course, God forbid, he or she quits, then you've got no salespeople. But I would say start with a couple salespeople, maybe 1 or 2 SDRs to help them with the lead gen. SDRs should be, young and hungry. So, a lot of, kids that are graduating from college that are interested in a career in sales, they've got that ambition and they've got that drive to do the real monotonous work of lead gen. It's not glorious. It's not sexy at all. But again, it's, building skills and, hell, they're cheap.
Yeah. Is there? So I'm just thinking of that persona you've given of like the young, hungry. Maybe they just graduated college and they want they want a career in sales.
Mm-hmm.
They are good maybe at the outbound stuff because it's just a lot of it's just in the trenches, just doing a lot of like data mining and pulling it together and out testing emails, which. I hate to generalize, but maybe an older salesperson just wouldn't want to do that shit like that. I just want to talk to people. I just want to go to events and make, form relationships and whatnot, which is not the right probably type of salesperson you need. Where does closing come into play? So you've got the lead gen process, you've qualified them, you've done maybe a demo and had a couple phone calls or something. Like, how do you kind of take them all the way down the finish line and close the deal in a SaaS company that sells, kind of higher priced sort of enterprisey software? Sure.
So, I mean, there's many schools of thought on this. People have asked me, what would you say is your best quality as a salesperson? And without any ego, I simply say persistence. And that's really just staying on top of your pipeline. It's kind of crazy. It always shocks me when I hear about salespeople who just don't follow up on leads, or they just kind of do a demo and then it's like, okay, well, let me know when you're, if you have any questions, and then, let me know what the next step is. That's completely putting them in the driver's seat, and you want, as a salesperson, really want to be in the driver's seat the entire time. So that means not getting off of the first call without either setting up a second call or setting a time where you're going to kind of follow up with them. It's, establishing early and on who would be the person who's actually signing the contract, making sure that you're talking to all the stakeholders. The first person you demo to is likely to be your champion, but very often they're not the person who's signing, the check, signing the contract. So you got to know who's going to be involved and what their motivations are and what they want out of this type of system, how it's going to help them. So ideally, if you can get time with them on the phone after this call, with permission, of course, from your champion or the first person you're talking to, these are the things that, get deals done. It's not just, I nailed this demo. They're a perfect fit. So that's half the battle. The other half is actually bringing it, through the door.
ABC.
Yeah.
Always be closing.
Yeah. Yes, I'm channeling my inner Alec Baldwin here.
Nice.
So I guess final question, and it's a totally self-serving one because we make proposal software. But do you guys, is there a value for you in instead of just emailing them a PDF and saying, hey, get back to me with a signed contract? Do you guys use anything to say like to just make it easier for them to just sign off and close the deal?
I mean, any type of tracking software is great. I mean, if you want to see like what parts of the contract that, are particularly sticking, or parts of the proposal that they are not, particularly fond of. A tracking software is great for that. Anything that can help you kind of present it in a professional way is great. One of the things that we use that I find is very helpful is like electronic signature. So there are companies out there that offer free plans. I mean, there's a ton of companies out there nowadays that do e-sig. But we use HelloSign. I think you can get like 5 free documents a month without having to do a paid plan. So you don't even have to pay for it if you don't want to. There's companies like Nitro PDF. They do that. Obviously DocuSign and, all these other companies. And so that way you don't have to have people taking, scanning and emailing. It just makes things a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. A really cool company called Proposify too. We have e-signatures.
I heard they have that. And you can get multiple signatures on there too.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. Actually, that was a feature people wanted, was they, instead of just having one signer, they wanted multiple. I think that's pretty standard in a lot of signature apps though. But anyway, it was really great talking to you. Great connecting again, Chris. Thanks so much for being on the show. And I'm sure the listeners got a ton of value out of kind of hearing your approach to outbound sales.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me, guys. Appreciate you, setting this up.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you rate and or review us on the iTunes Store. If you have a story or lesson to share with other agency owners and managers from around the world, hit us up. Just email Kyle or Kevin at proposify.biz. And also, if you write business proposals and you want to make that process a whole lot easier and more streamlined, check out proposify.biz and sign up for a free 30-day trial. Cheers!